Alongside Jungle Asian, I've also been called dirty, Asian slave, monkey, if not Tarzan, ABG, or hood Asians by East Asians who are mostly from developed Asian countries such as Japan, China, Korea, and such. All because I do not fit their beauty standards, whereas I have brown skin, or what we call morena, I have a wider, bigger nose, and fuller lips. So basically, it is a mix of colorism and racism within one race.
If you haven't seen Reen's original video, please go watch it first and watch the subsequent video she posted after that in the comments of that video, because she makes a lot of really good points. And then come back, because I want to talk about colorism and racism within the Asian community. Watching Reen's video got me thinking about my first girlfriend when I was 7 years old from church. I went to a Korean church, so the majority of the congregation was Korean. She was Korean, I was Korean. She was a year older than me, but it was very innocent. We used to mostly just hold hands and hang out underneath the weeping willow tree that was in the yard of the church. K-pop, Tim Hwang's father was our pastor. That has nothing to do with the story, but one day I found her under the weeping willow tree after Sunday school crying. And when I asked her what had happened, she told me that one of the Korean adults made fun of her for her skin being dark as dirt. At the age of 7 years old, I didn't have the life experiences to be able to tell her at the time that that woman was just projecting her own insecurities onto a poor 8-year-old girl. Now, fast forward a few years, I'm 11 years old, and my best friend at the time is Vietnamese, and his family invites me over for dinner, and they serve this dish called Tiet Kan, which is a pudding made out of raw pork blood. Admittingly, at the time, I was too chicken shit to try the dish, and then the next day when I went to church, at this point we had changed churches, but it was still an all-Korean church, I had told a couple of my friends about this dish, at which point they made fun of me for being friends with dirty Asians. And that was the first time that I was exposed to the elitism within the Asian community based off of colorism and possibly the fact that some of the Asian countries were less developed than the other East Asian ones. And it's so stupid that instead of banding together, we're separating each other. I don't know who needs to hear this, but this number includes all Asians, East Asians, South Asians, because racists don't see a difference. They think that none of us belong here. And it makes even less sense because Asians are literally the global majority. This number includes all of us, East, Southeast, and South Asians. Do you know what kind of impact we can have on this number if we all work together to watch each other's backs? And outside of the Asian community on a more global scale, if all of us BIPOC people can work together, do you know how much impact we can have on fighting racism? We all need to stop doing the crabs at the bottom of the barrel thing where we're all just fighting to not be in last place, because if we work together, we could all get out of the barrel. Look, being born an East Asian man, I know that I'm afforded some privileges in this country that a lot of people don't have, which is why I spend my spare time uplifting the Asian community, telling our stories, because love and knowledge eradicates.
It has come to my attention that racism is not only a thing that happens to people like me and you. Probably if you are black and you're watching this video.
I received hundreds and hundreds of racist comments yesterday simply because I'm brown and have an Indian origin. My girlfriend posted an innocent TikTok of us two simply showing our outfits across our holiday. And unfortunately, the video blew up massively for all the wrong reasons. It's my only repost on this account if you want to check it out yourself. This is just a tiny portion of the things that I've had to read over the past 24 hours. It's absolutely ridiculous. The majority of these comments were from faceless TikTok accounts who are clearly too scared to show their real selves to the world. However, there were a set few that just said it with chest. Profile picture, name, everything. One specifically was interesting to me. And it was this comment from Toon96. Now, not that you can compare racism, but this was not one of the worst comments in the TikTok section. However, it is still casual racism, as it's just giving me an Indian name and just saying, you know what I mean. But I click on this brother's account. 30 years of age. Not that though, he has a kid. Imagine being 30 years of age and commenting on 20-year-olds' TikToks, racist comments, and you're raising a kid. Bro. Like, look at this brother. Look at him. What is that? And not that I have to justify myself and stoop as low as some of these comments, but let's take a look at a couple more. Respond to them, react to them. Is he an immigrant? No, I was born and raised in Manchester, but I'm very, very, very proud of my parents who moved here legally after being headhunted because they are so good at their jobs. They are more successful and they are the most caring, loving parents than you'll ever have, my friend. Ever. Trust me on that. Such a shame that she's with one of them. One of them. The amount of comments that simply treat Indians as nobodies, not humans, nothing at all. Like, it's actually, like, mentally crazy. Like, actually crazy. Is this shit skin harassing you? Firstly, yeah, I'm a caramel brownie. Woo! Secondly, never call an Indian a shit skin again. I'm not saying this comment's from a white person, but the majority of people in England tan to reach a complexion like this. So love for that. Call Betty smells. Hello, V Saint Laurent. I smell of that. Yeah? So chill. Right, no more reacting, but I might make a little series reacting to some of the hate comments because I find it quite amusing. Firstly, I want to say thanks to all the good-hearted people in the comments who stood up to the racist freaks, the people that reached out to me and Kaya personally to check in on us. It's very kind and we appreciate it massively. I do want to say, though, I think I'm quite a confident person and I'm glad this happened to me. I wouldn't have wanted this to happen to someone that maybe wouldn't be able to take it as well. Not that that's a bad thing at all. I've even caught myself like scrolling constantly, reading through these hate comments, trying to bite my tongue, not respond to anything. And I can only imagine how bad it must make some people feel if maybe they don't have the mental capacity to, you know, deal with that properly. Properly is not the right word, but you know what I'm saying. On a final, more serious note, this normalisation of racism towards South Asians and brown people just can't go on. It's disgusting. The only people that do it are absolute lowlives or incels or just absolute freaks that weren't raised correctly. As I've said in the comments already, I think brown people just need to be more confident, be themselves. The people that see you for who you are the people that you want to associate yourself with anyway. So just stay confident, my boys and my girls. And all the comments that are saying, how's he done that then? That's a W, boys. I got a pretty girlfriend. That's not an insult.
Racism is happening to people of color. People of color refers to people who have pigmentation. Brown people, people who are black, you know. So a person of color is a non-white. Just think of it that way. And so we've had this wave of ideology that has come to the world right now that is of a beauty standard. You need to look a certain way, and that certain way is a way that is very close to looking white, you know. I don't know who told us the lie that you must be white in order for you to be beautiful. You have to be having a light skin in order for you to be perceived attractive, you know. And one of the things I can blame about this specific narrative is our media. Our media is injecting poisonous content to us, you know. The media is always presenting a light-skinned lady on the TV, selling you a product, making some advertisement. If you go to so many big shops, whoever you'll find there are light-skinned people. Even here in Kenya, I see very big shops. When I go there, there's a light-skinned lady showing their hands to you, welcome. It's very, very hard to find a black lady, a dark lady standing there. They are still black even though they are having a light skin, you know. So this leaves the black woman, the dark woman, in a situation where they don't fit. They feel that they don't fit. So they need to make steps to accommodate the society to allow them, you know. They might bleach, they might do nails, they might add some hair, you know, all those silly stuff. Very, very bad things, you know. And this is not just a problem in Africa. This is a worldwide problem because the Chinese are complaining, the Indians are complaining, the Vietnamese are complaining. You know, it's a problem that's affecting the whole globe, right? So I want us to listen to some of these lamentations and some of these cries. And then I shall get back by the end of the video, of course, where we shall also have a deep critical analysis.
Talk about racism, specifically South Asian racism. If you are someone like me who's continuously active on social media, whether it be Instagram or TikTok, you have probably seen insane amounts of racism when it comes to the South Asian community. Disgusting, vile comments, hate speech, and just general hate and a disregard for the South Asian community. I myself have received hundreds and hundreds of racist comments on my own page, and I think that's something we need to bring to attention. Right now, South Asian communities face the highest volume of anti-Asian hate on DVE online communities, which brings it to 60% of hate, meaning 60% of the anti-Asian hate is directed towards South Asians. Anti-South Asian slurs accounted for the highest volume of anti-Asian terms, and anti-South Asian slurs doubled from around 23,000 in January 2023 to over 46,000 in August 2024. They also noticeably spiked in August 2024 amid the emergence of two South Asian political figures, Kamala Harris and Usha Vance. And a lot of the racism we see has to do with the disgusting, untrue stereotypes that Indians or South Asians are smelly, that we're rude, that we worship cow poop, and that people comment shit like stinky people or why did you redeem it, as if that's funny, as if that's not harmful to a whole community. Not only that, but it's just exacerbated because hundreds of white travel content creators who just go to India just to show clips of slums and homelessness, which does not accurately represent all of India. Many of these travel creators fail to show the beauty of the Indian culture, of the architecture, the food, and they do this all to get clickbait views and viral videos on hating on India. And just India, not including Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Pakistan in itself, have over 1.4 billion people who are facing racism from all communities. I have seen racist comments from the white community, from the black community, from the Hispanic Latino community, without people shaming them or without there being any pushback. It's just been so normalized in the society of being racist towards South Asians and spreading vile information about them, and it honestly needs to be stopped. So I just want to bring to attention that this is a huge area of concern in social media, and we all need to come together to stop this racist hate towards South Asians.
Microaggressions against Asians. Let's finally talk about it, shall we? I grew up around the Seattle area, so it was diverse, and I saw people who look like me. Not to say that that shields anyone from racism, but there are places that are worse. Like the time I traveled to Florida. First of all the stares that me and my family got. Dead ass, it was like this. And I caught on to it real quickly because I wasn't used to that at home. And then I went to a beach in Miami. These two guys approached me and they were like, "Hey, Jeremy Lin." And at the time I was in high school and haven't unpacked the model minority in me yet. So I was like, "Hey." And then they were like, "Can we take a picture with you?" And you know, I'm chill. So I'm like, all right. And they took a picture with me. And then they were like, "Hey, let's show everyone our little Asian friend." Which now looking back was pretty freaking condescending. And I didn't see it like that before. Yeah, it did feel kind of weird and I felt kind of awkward. But I gave them the benefit of the doubt and was like, "Hey, they're nice. They think I'm cool," which is pretty freaking sad, especially since I was treated like a spectacle, like some Disney character at Disneyland. What, you want an autograph too? So that's an example of microaggression, because at the surface, it seems like they're giving you a compliment, but it just makes you feel downplayed, belittled, and condescended. And I walked away from that experience like, that was kind of weird, but whatever. And that whatever mentality, the one that shrugs off problems like it's not a big deal, is deep rooted in the Asian American experience. Does being tolerant and easygoing make us harder or more likable? You might hear this story and say, "You're just being too sensitive." But maybe Asians need to be more sensitive so that we can stop being a pawn or a little minion and finally get the respect that we deserve. If you're Asian and have any experience with racism, then drop it in the comments.
Okay, in China, they have like a hierarchy for countries. So basically, the top are like the Western countries, America, Europe, Canada. It's like in the top. If you're from there, they look up to you. And then the second one is probably like poor, because like they're kind of rich in terms of GDP and everything. And the countries that they kind of look down upon are like my country, which is Malaysia, and like other Southeast Asian countries, other than Singapore. So basically, it gets really awkward because sometimes people be like, "Oh, you're from another country, so where are you from?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm Malaysian." They're like, "Oh." So like for people who haven't been to Malaysia, they usually just assume that we live on trees. But then for people who have been to Malaysia, they will be very nice. But yeah, the people who haven't been to Malaysia, they would just be like, "Oh, so you guys are probably poor," and then they would just treat you kind of different. For example, my friend, she's Malaysian, and then so before that, like her professor doesn't know she's Malaysian. And afterwards her professor realized that, oh, so she's Malaysian and her friend is from America. All are ethnically Chinese. So like, she's Malaysian Chinese and then the other friend is American Chinese. And then the thing is, the professor just treated them differently. Like before that, the professor was actually nice to my friend. But after that, the professor was just so not nice to my friend anymore because she's from Malaysia and the other friend is from America. And so the professor would always be like, "Oh, so like American girl, like like, I didn't say her name, not actually say like you're an American girl, but like say her name, like, oh, like, how are you, everything, I'm being so nice. And that's how my friend was doing the presentation. She did like 30 slides of the presentation, and the whole time the professor was just trying to let her finish quickly, because he's like, oh no, you need to let the American girl speak. The American girl only spoke for like 5 slides, and then he was like, oh, that's a really great American girl. But then, and he told my friend that she tried too hard. But the whole time she did most of the presentation slides, and then she wrote everything. She actually put in so much work, and I just feel really, really bad for my friend. I mean, like, I also have faced some discrimination, but usually I just don't really care, and it wasn't that bad. So yeah, but the thing is, some people, they're actually so nice because they've been to Malaysia, so they know that Malaysia is really, really nice. You know, the people's nice, food is nice, so like they are very, very, very sweet. I think it depends, but there is a general hierarchy here. No, but to be honest, a lot of people are also super nice. Even if they haven't been to Malaysia or any other countries, they would be sweet to like try to get to know you, but also not really, because like introverted, so they just feel like, oh, maybe I won't be able to speak to you well because there's probably like cultural differences, and so usually they don't speak. But if you try to talk to them, some of them will be quite nice, but some of them wouldn't also. So I guess it really depends on people.
So last time I coined the term soft racism in Asians, and I want to call out my use of the word soft because it really hurt people in the comments. And I should have defined it because Black Americans have been the most wounded by racism, and so I really get that any distinction between soft and hard is practically meaningless. I want to clarify that racism isn't soft, as in light or benign, or diminishing the violent and traumatic impacts of racism across all Black and brown people, including Asians, but especially for Black people. I was meaning soft racism as more psychological and calculated, but not intent on killing or physical harm. And hard meaning with intent to kill or harm, that's justified and backed by the Western eugenics theory of power that drives white supremacy to this very day. And both are still about weaponizing power, and both are still violent, and both are there to wound us as designed as non-whites by either killing us fast or killing us slow, by killing our spirits in a slow death, which is what I think Asians suffer from. And to that point, my immigrant dad was wrong. He's dead, so I can't tell him that. But if he were alive, I would have a different kind of race talk with him. The same ones that I have with my teenagers that span both hard and soft racism and call out white supremacy daily, especially around social and sexual racism and power dynamics that are systemic, since that's my coaching work. I would tell my dad what I tell my kids about how our Asian American identity is inherently linked to Blackness and brownness, not this model minority whiteness, which is the Asian matrix that he and boomers of his generation never unplugged from. And lastly, I want to thank everyone for your sincere engagement on this really complex subject of race and power. They are the same thing. And I really hope that we can keep the conversation going. Thank you so much.
These are some things that white people say about Asian people in private. If you're a person who falls into this demographic, you might have heard these things before, but if you're a white person, stop fucking saying these things. Number 1, the Chinese food boycott by white people during the COVID pandemic. Yeah, I know of many white people who will still not eat Chinese food ever since the pandemic because they are convinced that somehow eating Chinese food is supporting China, or that they're going to somehow contract the virus through the food because of the connections that they have. Number 2, saying that Asian people smell bad. This is a very pervasive myth among white conservative people, specifically referring to South Asian people. Number 3, not knowing the difference between the different languages in Asia and just referring to anyone who looks remotely Asian as Chinese. Number 4, refusing to visit any country in Asia, whether it's Japan, Thailand, etc., because it is either dirty or because they don't want to support the enemy. Number 5, assuming that any Asian person who has had a successful career cheated because of the way Asian people are raised to be very intelligent, definitely rooted in race. I'll be making more of these videos in the series, so comment if you have any other ones that you think I've forgotten. Bye!
Now that Asian racism is in the conversation and being taken seriously right now, let's talk about the times that I faced racism growing up as an Asian in the American Midwest. The thick skin you have to develop growing up in a white suburb of Minnesota. I was the only Asian kid, or one of the only Asian kids, in every school that I went to. So you always have like the classic, like they'll do this with their eyes when I was growing up, which is crazy. Like they'll never know how to pronounce your name and never even try. Honestly, a really sad memory I had was I was always made fun of for the lunches I would bring. So there was a day that I brought rice and like this type of dry pork. It's called jabang in Vietnamese, and it was one of my favorite things to eat ever. And I brought it to lunch and I was so excited to eat it. And then a bunch of the popular boys in elementary school, I was like in 4th grade or something, they came and they were like, what is that? And they were like kind of making fun of it, and then they like wanted to try it, and I think it was so good and delicious, so I was like, yeah, try it. And then they were like would eat it and they'd be like, whoa, like what is that? And then I just felt really embarrassed and they were totally shaming me for it. So I remember that night I came home and I told my mom, I was like crying, and I said, I only want American lunches from now on. Like, we have to pack sandwiches. So we went to the grocery store and I made her help me like pick out bread and peanut butter and jelly. And I never really ate those things. I mean, I would prefer my rice lunches, but I remember from then on, I started only packing peanut butter sandwiches, which is so sad. But sometimes you just like assimilate out of survival. I remember there were times, especially walking around in Europe, but even like where I was growing up, where people would be like, oh, are you from China? Are you Chinese? Like, ni hao, when just because you're Asian doesn't mean that you're Chinese. I remember there was a time I was in Italy, and Italy is obviously like really racist to Asians, or maybe it's not obvious, but that is true. Like, they will say ni hao if you're walking across the street. But it was an American family that we were sitting next to in front of the dinner table at a restaurant in Italy, and they were like ching chong to us and like doing the eyes at me. And I remember I was like 15, like 14 or 15, and I was literally trying my best not to cry. I remember that was like such a hurtful experience. That was like a really blatantly racist experience. There was also another time growing up, I would go to temple every Sunday, not because we were religious, but because there was a Vietnamese school after service. So that's where I would learn Vietnamese and like practice reading and writing Vietnamese. Then the school went secular and they started renting from the high school right next to the temple, which was a Christian school, like a Catholic private school. We would rent from them on Sundays, and we would like, they would split it with barriers in half from like their Sunday service and then our Vietnamese school on the other side of the school. But their side of the school had all the water fountains. You guys kind of get where this is coming at. So we would always have lunch period where we would kind of have recess and play with the kids. And I was a teaching assistant because I was like 16 or 17. I had graduated and I was teaching the kids. So I was like a TA there. After recess, like all the kids would be really thirsty. So then I would sneak them over the border to drink from this one water fountain. And there was one day that I got caught. Like one of the Christian ladies there. And she was like, what are you doing on this side? And I was like, sorry, they wanted water. Like they were thirsty. She was like, you don't belong on this side of this school. And I was like, what? Like, okay, sorry. And she's like, you don't belong here. Do you get me? You don't belong here. Like, it was clear what she was trying to say. And I just remember, like, feeling so hurt. And I was only 16 or 17. And my dad, who was the president of the school, or, like, one of the founders of the school, like, came over. He's like, what's going on here? And she was like, you guys don't belong here. Like, and he apologized that we were on their side of the school. But then she kept saying that. And he was like, okay, be careful. Because when you say you don't belong here, that can mean a lot of things. I just remember he was defending me. But those were some of like the stories that I can remember. I'm sure there's so much that I blacked out and blocked out from growing up in like the suburbs of Minnesota. Being one of the only Asian people growing up did a number on me. Like, you definitely learn how to have a thick skin and how to be proud of yourself regardless of what people think of you.
My fellow Asian Americans that have dealt with racism and microaggression, I have a story for you about my recent encounter with microaggression. It ends well because I end up telling this person to take their bullshit to therapy. Literally almost made her cry. I was recently at a Fletcher concert in Chicago. I'm in the balcony enjoying the concert, and this person next to me is elbowing me the whole time. I could tell she wasn't happy that I was there. I don't know why. She just didn't want me to exist or something. And I had a feeling that she was going to say something. After the opening act, she turns to me and she tells me to stop bumping into her. I am literally not moving, but she wants to pick a fight. She tells me she's been there since 6 o'clock and that she needs her space. I tell her I haven't been moving the whole time, that she's been bumping into me. Goes off again. She clearly is not happy with me being there. Usually I freeze in these interactions, but this time, I don't know what happened. I felt grounded and I just blurted out, I don't know what kind of bullshit this is, but you need to figure it out in therapy. I look at her straight in the eye and I'm shaking, and she just looks at me like she's about to cry. And then she immediately apologizes. In that moment of standing up for myself, I felt like my ancestors rolled on their grave and gave me a round of applause. I tell her, look, I'm here to enjoy the Fletcher concert. Fletcher is supporting the queer community. I am queer. And she's like, oh, you are? And I'm like, yeah. Have you heard of thumbs. She tells me she's hangry, she's had a rough day, she's visiting from Florida. I tell her that I'm a New Yorker, and she's like, oh wow. She immediately is nicer to me and respects me more. For the rest of the concert, she doesn't bump into me at all. We end up being cordial. When Fletcher performs Healing, she turns to me, she was like, this is my favorite song. And I'm like, wow, ironic. And towards the end of the night, she gives me a hug. She's like, you know what? You changed my perspective. Thank you. And it was fine. I enjoyed the concert as much as I can, but I really wish I didn't have that interaction in the first place. Here's the thing. I may be Asian, but I am not your punching bag. I am not someone you can walk all over, and I'm no longer available to take your shit. I shouldn't have to fight to exist next to you. I'm allowed to take up space. And if someone is not okay with that because of the way I look, then you can take that bullshit to therapy.
You're so pretty. Are you Korean? And I'm like, no, I'm Chinese. And they're like, oh.
That video literally hit me to the core. When I put on makeup, I got recognized as Korean or Japanese. If I just go out without makeup with my bare face, I got recognized as Chinese only. So to some people, for some reason, they think Chinese people are way uglier than Korean and Japanese. So one time I had my makeup on, I had my full glam, and I got recognized as Korean again. And those guys even approached me and asked me, hey, are you Korean? You look like Korean? Something like this. And I asked them back, I was like, why do you think I look like Korean? What made you think that? And then just said, oh, because you have really nice eyes. Your eyes are really pretty. You have really nice, narrow, high nose, something like this. You are definitely Korean. So I decided to play with them. And I answered back to say, oh, yes, I'm Korean actually. I'm 5% Korean, 95% Chinese. And then those guys just looked at me as confused. And I'm like, huh? You're 5% Korean? What do you mean? And then I point to my pretty eyes and my pretty nose to tell them, well, because I bought those from Korea. You know, I'm 5% artificial Korea. And then those guys have the nerve to tell me that, oh, that explains because your eyes and your nose are way prettier than the rest of your face, than the rest of the facial on my face. And then I tell them, well, thank you, because I lied to you. I'm all natural. Every ounce of me is made in China. I'm 100% Chinese. But thank you for thinking that I look like artificial Korean. The look from those guys' face, I wish I can record them.
Asian racism is always like slightly, just a little bit more accepted for some weird reason.
One reason is our own people. Let me show you something. Oh, you think it stops there? No. A joke about Asians eating pets in the year 2025 getting hundreds of thousands of likes? More likely than you think. I censored that guy's face because I'm 90% sure they're a minor and hopefully they grow, but he is not an isolated incident. There are so many Asians who are quick to use stereotypes as the foundation of their jokes, of their humor. Whether people want to admit it or not, this perpetuates racism. It normalizes it. Comedy is powerful. Comedy transcends communities in positive ways and negative ways. Asians are more than capable of being funny without relying on racial stereotypes as a crutch. I like to use Nat Community Channel on YouTube as a great example of that. I grew up with her. So funny. You don't have to use an accent. So why do some Asians do this? A lot of the time it has to do with wanting to appeal to other communities or gain approval from them. It's easy to assimilate into another culture if you betray your own. Another reason is that there are opportunities for material gain. There are many creators, comedians who've built a platform off of racialized humor, off of exaggerated accents, making fun of their parents, and they get rewarded for it. They get brand deals. They get opportunities to perform at big stages, the Golden Globes. Unfortunately, I think that Asian racism will continue to not be taken seriously. It's not just these aspects. There are others like the model minority myth. Having positive stereotypes is not a good thing, trust me. Those rob us of the nuances in our communities, and that's a whole nother bag of rice to open for a different day. Every time an Asian decides to use an exaggerated accent and stereotypes to build their platform, a Japanese government official denies their war crimes.
As a Chinese American, why do I have to pick a side when I expose Chinese actresses for the embarrassing things they did to achieve insane beauty standards? I'm being called a racist, no less by someone with a Hong Kong flag as their profile pic. But when I talk about something that the Chinese are doing right, I'm labeled as a Wu Mao propaganda. I want to clarify what the celebrities do in mainland China has nothing to do with the ordinary Chinese citizen, especially those that live overseas. I hope through my videos, girls can feel less anxious about their skin and body, knowing that celebrities also use beauty filters and retouching to achieve that perfect image on screen. Do not place your rage on some random Chinese person you see on the street. Even if you can hide behind the screen, just know that your words can hurt.
If you're Asian, you probably experienced your share of racism growing up, just like I did. It wasn't rare to find myself the only Asian kid in my elementary school, in my middle school, in my high school, in the juvenile halls that I went to. And for that reason, there were a lot of times where I had to take a lot of bullshit. And there were a lot of times where I had to put my fist up and stand up for myself. But looking at hindsight, I hold no resentment towards anything that was said to me or anything that happened to me. You know, kids are just cruel because they don't know any better. You know, I wasn't perfect either. However, I still see a lot of that same racism on mainstream media today. I see it in movies, I see it in TVs, I see it on social media. Sometimes that shit is in your face. Sometimes it's hidden behind passive-aggressive statements and disrespectful innuendos. I'm pretty sure you agree with me when society still thinks as Asians as a stereotypical model minority. Quiet, meek, timid, non-threatening, harmless. So fellas, if you're sick of society labeling us that way, you gotta do more than just hashtagging Stop Asian Hate and reposting Asian pride memes on your Instagram. You gotta start putting work on yourself. You gotta start being loud. You gotta start being bold. You gotta start being a little dangerous. You can't expect to change shit just by being a keyboard warrior. So start speaking up. Start getting in shape. Start working on your style. You don't gotta be blasted like me, but you can still make yourself stand out from the crowd. You don't gotta look like a gangster. Just don't look like a dork. So don't be afraid to start living on the edge, man. It might not be as safe, but I guarantee you the views are much better. So let's change how the world views Asians. Our time to shine is gonna come regardless, but let's just do our part to make sure that we get there a little quicker, all right? Let's get it.
One thing that I have noticed, and I believe you'll agree with me, is that nobody is born a racist. Nobody is born a colorist. This is a learned behavior. It is not an inherent human behavior, you know. There's no gene that is called special gene that makes you think I'm special than another person just because I'm having a different kind of hair and I'm having a different kind of skin tone, you know. So the thing is it's a learned activity, you know. So how do we learn this activity? How do we perceive ourselves as better, as attractive, because of our skin color? You know, you might ask yourself this question, you know. And one thing you need to understand is that countries that were colonized are the ones that are suffering the most with this problem. Countries that were colonized suffered the most with this problem. You know, Africa was almost all the countries in Africa were colonized, except two countries. We have the country of Liberia and we have the country of Ethiopia. The Ethiopians are Cushitic people with whom they have some kind of Middle Eastern DNA. You see, the Ethiopians can represent what the ancient Jews used to look like. They will be close to how these modern Ethiopians look like, you know. But they are good. Most of these complaints, I don't hear it about Ethiopia, no. I hear it about these other countries, you know. But once it goes ahead and it steps outside Africa into countries such as Vietnam, into countries such as China, another thing comes into my mind, you know. So let's first dwell in Africa. Why does it happen in Africa? It happens in Africa because of colonization. Colonization was not just a thing of politics. It wasn't just a social thing, you know. It had some psychological consequences to it. Actually, it had more psychological effect than any other of than those other domains, you know, because once someone has colonized your mind, as a famous writer in Kenya by the name Ngugi wa Thiong'o used to say, peace be upon him. What he used to say is that for Africans to be liberated, they first must decolonize their mind. You know, our minds are colonized to believe that we are ugly, we are not acceptable. You know, that when we are very close to our slave master, we are that how the slave master looks like. That is the situation, or that is the optimal standards of beauty. But I'm telling you, beauty is very subjective, highly subjective, you know. So that is colonization. Africa was colonized, you know. So let's go all the way to China. Can we say China was colonized? Yes, it was colonized by the Japanese. And later we had some British also in China, and some Americans also in China. So they were colonized, but I think their colonization was different from ours, you know. That the problems that the Chinese are having as racist, as this problem of colorism, is one which is being exported. It's an exported problem. It's a problem that has been borrowed from the West into the country itself. You see, when you are quick to throw away your culture, you become slave to another person's culture, you know. The Chinese have their own culture, they have their own ways of dressing, and the Chinese are not white people, very much not white. They are people with whom have a special kind of skin color, yellowish, almost yellowish. I hear people saying that. So they ain't white and they ain't black, they have their own color. But now, because they have exported an external culture into their country, they need to conform to it, you know. We have those things such as K-pop. K-pop borrows heavily from the Black American influence in the United States of America. That's also another good example of how exporting a culture might deteriorate yours, because now you feel like that other culture is better than yours. And so Hollywood has set a certain standard. You need to look a certain way, you need to have a certain skin tone for you to be beautiful. So these people will go to a very painful depth to look a certain way. And that woman was very right in saying that do not feel bad about yourself. These people go through a lot to be how they look like, to be attractive on the camera, you know. An exported beauty standard. That is what is affecting them. And also, their mindset is decolonized, and their mindset should be decolonized, you know. And also, if we go to Vietnam, Vietnam is also a very beautiful country. It had a very long, very long war with the United States of America, you know. So they must have had some interaction when peace came, you know. Also, that thing which happens in China has happened there. The Vietnamese are not as Chinese. Actually, they are supposed to be darker because they are close. They are more south. You know, you will notice that the southern Asians or the southern Indians are always darker than the northern Indians. The northern you go, the more colder it becomes. You know, but Vietnam is not so far away from the equator. You know. So they themselves, they have their unique color, but exporting a culture from outside will make you feel less about yourself, you know? And that is also a very big problem that has affected the country of Vietnam, exporting another person's culture and also colonization, you know? And for the Black Americans, it might be slavery. Slavery has now set a condition. You need to look a certain way. You need to look like your oppressor. That one removes the idea that you are beautiful to install an idea that you need to look a certain way in order for you to be accepted. But we really can't blame our own brothers and sisters. We can't blame them. The media is deteriorated. Sometimes for you to eat, you need to bleach. Sometimes for you to work, you need to bleach. And that's a very, very huge problem that our brothers and sisters are facing in these specific countries. Yeah. And also for the Indians, you find that the Indians have a caste system. The caste system also, there is a tenet, I believe, one which is based on skin color. The lighter you are, the more beautiful. The lighter you are, the more successful. So the dark children are always pushed away. I once made a video about an Indian woman who had children, and because she married a dark man, her mom did not want her dark-skinned children, but she preferred her light-skinned children. Believe me, all these were her grandchildren, both the dark grandchildren and the light-skinned grandchildren. But she chose the light skin. And the mother, the grandmother now, herself, she was dark. It tells you how much self-hatred we have upon ourselves. When you see all this happening, you see these people being rejected, the people who reject them suffer the most because they have not loved themselves. Even I myself, there is a time I used to think, oh, I go to some places not accepted because of skin color, because I'm dark. No. I came to discover my dark skin is best. God knows why He gave me this dark skin. I can't feel bad. I can't feel like a nobody because I don't look like a white person. God knows why He made you, how He made you. Do not change. If you change, you are trying to correct Him. Nobody can correct the Most High God. Yes. And if you have any thoughts about this video, you have any thoughts about this commentary, I'd really love to hear what you have to say, because your thoughts might be very, 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 very important in helping someone uncover a negative mindset they may have. Remember, all this is just a mindset. And when we can remove the mindset, it becomes well. Surround yourself with people who accept you for who you are. Don't surround yourself with colorists. Once you discover they are colorists, you are permitted, I tell you, you are permitted to walk away. Surround yourself with people of value, people who will appreciate you, people who do not look at your shortcomings, but at your advantages. Yes. This is EFK Original Documentaries. See you in the next one.